Austin Simmons versus Walker Howard is actually going to end up being a major storyline this fall for Ole Miss football.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media at Yahoo Sports. And as you're watching this, I'm probably driving back to Central Florida. Today on the show, we talk about the coming battle in fall camp between Austin Simmons and Walker Howard, beginning possibly the greatest quarterback battle in Ole Miss history. Brian Smith stalks by to talk a little bit of recruiting gossip on Winston, Watkins, and Ladarian, Clardy, and what is his first impression of OU and Texas. This is the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So, really interesting stuff because everybody knows what Ole Miss is predicted to do in 2024. Everybody knows about Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, all of those guys. We'll bring up some of them now, but like Jackson Dart is undoubtedly the number one quarterback for Ole Miss this year. But that is going to get the attention from everybody nationally, but inside the fan base, one of the biggest stories that is going to develop this fall camp is the backup quarterback race. Nobody has asked that question. Nobody's doing that. And you have an interesting system in place right now. You have Austin Simmons, who got injured at the end of baseball season, but rehabbed, and he should be fine by the time football starts. And you have Walker Howard. And you have Austin Simmons, who's always in the news. He's kind of, captured the imagination of the Ole Miss fan base of what he could be. I've called him Tua plus 3 inches. He is an extremely talented quarterback, and when everybody sees him going with full pads on and everything like that, they're going to be blown away by him. But you also have 5-star in Walker Howard, a really good quarterback in his own right, who kind of keeps to himself. He doesn't do all the stuff that can capture the imagination of the fan base, but the talent is undeniably there. So one of these two people are going to be the starting quarterback of Ole Miss in 2025. And that battle, honestly, has already started. The first leg up for either one of them will be, hey, who is the backup quarterback behind Jackson Dart in 2024? They're trying to get the first reps after the game gets out of hand. That is going to be their goal. Now, it might be something that Lane Kiffin just refuses to do it just so nobody knows exactly where they stand. And I get that a coach would do that to where Walker Howard takes the backup reps against Furman and Austin Simmons takes the backup reps against Middle Tennessee. If that happened, I could see something like that happening. And this quarterback competition going into the spring, which is going to be a massive battle that you can't overlook. I don't know if he's going to name a quarterback, even if it's there, because if you remember back to 2022 when it was Jackson Dart versus Luke Altmaier, he wouldn't name a quarterback. He wouldn't. And so it's going to drive a lot of people really, really crazy to think about what can happen, because I don't think Lane Kiffin is going to name a quarterback to try and get them to fall. Now, if the quarterback race is obvious and to the point where the players know what's going on, whoever is number 2 is probably transferring out, whether Lane Kiffin names it or not. Ole Miss is probably not going to keep both of those after next year. Just erase the thought that you could have a Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones situation in your head. That is not really an option. The quarterback room in 2025 is going to be likely whoever wins the quarterback competition, and then A.J. Maddox, and then potentially like Deuce Knight or somebody like that. So we will see exactly how it goes, but this battle is going to be quietly overtaking other storylines this fall camp to the point where it gravitates Ole Miss fans to that area because they care about that. Now, like I said, national media is caring about the fact that there's a number 5 by Ole Miss's name, and how does Ole Miss meet that standard? That is going to be the national storylines. But inside the Ole Miss fan base, they're already looking towards 2025 because they see the exodus that's going to happen. There's going to be probably 50 players off this Ole Miss football team that is going to be leaving after this season. It's not going to the NFL. It's not necessarily doing it. It's just eligibility is expired because so many players have come back. So really interesting stuff. One of the biggest questions in the meet and greet that we had on Tuesday was, what is Ole Miss going to do about 2025 with all of these players? With all of this change that could happen, what is Ole Miss going to do about 2025? And honestly, I told people is like, enjoy 2024, okay? Have fun. Do not worry about 2025 because with the recruiting and the transfer portal, it could look completely okay and everything could be fine because you have a quarterback. We just talked about that. You're going to have a quarterback. But enjoy this because this 2024 season is the season that Ole Miss fans have essentially been waiting for their whole lives. I know I have. I know I'm excited about this. And I am determined not to let anything ruin this. And unknowns about recruiting and stuff like that, those are the daggers that rival fan bases try to play and try to use. So don't fall for it. Don't take their bait. Anyway, we had a meet and greet on Tuesday night. This is the first time I've recorded since Tuesday night. Tuesday night was last night. Today's my mom's birthday. I'm going to go hang out with her this afternoon. This is July 3rd when I recorded this. And getting ready to go to my dad's, and I'm getting ready to go back to Florida. So I needed the whole week done. So this is Friday's show. So if anything breaks on Thursday or Friday, I apologize for it, but it's a chance I guess I have to take if I want to hang out with these people. You know how it is when you go home and see family. But the meet and greet on Tuesday night completely blew me away. There were 40-ish people that went to the event. There were people that traveled from Gaucher, Purvis, and Pontotoc. And it was really cool to get to meet everybody. There was one nice lady that I was talking to, and I turned my head, and she kind of disappeared on me. I couldn't find her, and I think she left. I apologize the next time we do something like this because it will not be a one-off. The next time we do something like this, I will be sure to talk to you and give all the time that we can give. But thank you to everyone who traveled across the state of Mississippi to go to walk-ons for a meet and greet. 40-something people. That's nuts. And I want to say thank you to the Ridgeland walk-on staff. They were completely helpful. They were great. They were absolutely fantastic. And, they even got my Kathy Ireland Ole Miss roster. We got one of those medallions that was handed out, I think, at the meet and greet as well. Good stuff. I had so much fun. My mom had so much fun. But now it's time to get back to the great state of Florida and get ready for the most anticipated football season in history. I have to reach out to my analysts this month, which include like John Forcade, DeMarcus Lodge, Bill Flowers, to let them know, hey, we are going to be good and we're going to try and really blow out this football season and we're going to try and maximize it as best we can. Really cool stuff. Thank you so much for everything on Tuesday night. And like I said, we're going to do it again. We're probably going to do a meet and greet the Friday before the Florida Gators game in Gainesville. If you're traveling down there, if you're a road rebel, we're going to do that because that's like 2.5 hours up the road for me. And if Ole Miss hosts a playoff game, I should do the full week in Oxford. That is the plan, the full week in Oxford. So we'll see exactly how that goes. I'm pretty fired up about pretty much everything. So thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. We bring on Brian Smith and get all the Cruton gossip right now. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, we're going to go to Brian Smith. And, of course, Brian Smith is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the college football sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster, period. Just post your job for free at .com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, I'm at the Ameristar in Vicksburg, and so we're at the mercy of their end a little bit. You are over in Auburn, Alabama, and this is kind of the visit season's kind of over. Now we're kind of into commitment season, right?
Yeah, this is the end of it. Here the next 3 to 5 days, there'll be a bunch of kids commit, 4th of July, etc. So there'll be a lot of commitments flying up on X and on Instagram, etc.
Yeah, it should be quite interesting. One player that's made a little bit of noise over the last couple of weeks is Winston Watkins. He showed up at a camp wearing freaking Ole Miss gloves, the come to the sip gloves. What have you heard about Winston Watkins, and what do you think is going on?
Well, he is looking at South Carolina. He's looking at Indiana, Ole Miss, etc. He's an elite slot receiver. I just listened to an interview he did with Rivals, and he loves Lane's offense, and he thinks he's an offensive genius, etc. If I had to guess, that's where he's going, but I don't know for sure. There's a lot of different things to look at here because this kid's recruitment is so national. I don't want to pick any one school, but hey, if you're a slot guy and they compared him to Elijah Moore, that was their comp. All right, well, then they obviously like you. That's a pretty big comp, but hey, that's what he's going with. So I'm going to pick Ole Miss, but I think it would just be fun to see we call him Winnie, to see him play in that offense. It would be really, really unique.
Yeah, it should be quite interesting with him. And I think the wide receiver out of Miami, Howard, I believe his last name is Kobe Howard, maybe.
Yep.
He's another player that has been RPM to Ole Miss on 3. Talk about him as an athlete, because he kind of looks like more of a speed slot.
Kobe can fly. I've seen him since he was a freshman. He's a national recruit. Penn State, Florida, several other schools were involved. I just think that he's a dog when he has the ball in his hands above anything else. Like, he is going to break tackles. He's going to make guys miss. He's very competitive. But his deep threat is what he was known on before he really gained a whole lot of acumen with how to run routes. He just ran by guys, which never goes out of style. So that's a big-time player, and Ole Miss has made a living off guys being home run threats as receivers. So that would be a big get for the Ole Miss Rebels. Yeah,
and have you heard of anything that I might not be thinking of recruiting-wise for Ole Miss this year?
Well, there's a lot of rumors with guys, but, like, nothing solid. And I wouldn't put a lot of stock in things right now. Like last night, I was waiting on a kid to commit to Florida State, and the kid picked Arkansas over Florida State and Georgia. So anything is possible in recruiting, Stephen. Like after I saw that, I'm like, holy moly. This is why I don't do many predictions.
Yeah, and recruiting, especially we're 6 months out away from essentially anything realistic happening, and even after you sign in December, you can transfer out in May. So, I mean, almost the word commitment needs to be replaced with just leader.
I hate to say it, but you're probably right, to be really frank with you. It is what it is, man. The transfer portal's made things very, very awkward in the recruiting world.
Yeah, pretty good. And let's go to Escambia County, the Pensacola area, and a player named Ladarian Clardy, who I think is going to commit fairly soon. Either way, it feels like it's getting close. He's a defensive back. He's OV'd at Ole Miss. They're very high on him. Ole Miss is recruiting the heck out of him. But what do you know about that player?
Going to play safety at the collegiate level. He is very highly coveted. Ole Miss, Florida State, many other programs are after him. He has the length you're looking for to play in the back end. I like him as the single high safety, or you can play cover 2 with him, whatever, but he can really run. Typical Florida kid. He's from the same high school that produced none other than Emmitt Smith. And he's a kid that I think will have a pretty early impact wherever he goes.
Hey, fun fact. My high school, I think, was the only high school to hold Emmitt Smith under 100 yards. Whenever
there weren't many.
During that. Yeah. McGee High School held him to like 93 or something like that in 1985 or whenever that was. But yeah, it was a 7-3 game that Escambia won. I don't know why McGee, Mississippi was playing Escambia in 1985, but that apparently happened.
It's wild.
Absolutely nuts. So anyway, really, really good player. Before we get out of here, what are your first impressions on Texas and Oklahoma?
I think Texas will have the more immediate success because they've got better line play based on how they've recruited out of high school. They got more depth, especially on offensive line. Quinn Ewers is a senior quarterback. They got a ton of speed. They've got a ton of running backs. Like they're a national title contender. I need to see how they handle the grind of the week-to-week pounding that the SEC is going to bring you. But at the same time, you're talking about a program that just, it's Texas. They should be able to recruit like that. Oklahoma is a little different. They got the defensive tackle that started on TCU's runner-up team as a freshman. They paid a bunch of money for him in the portal. He's a key guy, but I don't think they've got quite the depth, O-line, D-line, that some of the other programs do. Jackson Arnold's going to be under a lot of pressure, too. He's the sophomore quarterback. He won Elite 11 a couple of years ago. That's a lot of pressure to run the Oklahoma offense, especially after 10-2 regular season last year. I think their win total was only like 7.5 or something like that, Stephen. They lost a bunch of guys. They had a lot of guys leave, but defense, I think, will be pretty good, just not dominant, and their schedule's tough. So we'll see how they do, but right now I like Texas a little better than Oklahoma.
Yeah, Jackson Arnold at the Under Armour game a couple years ago, I think he was there. He kind of balled out. Yeah,
he's a really good player. Seen him live at high school. He was a baseball kid. He was good in the Elite 11 and Under Armour, everything he's done. He's a really good football player.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. When we come back, we kind of keep going down this road and recruiting. We have Brian Smith. We'll talk to him for about 5-10 more minutes. So stick around. Gametime is the place to get your MLB tickets with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Like I said, they have views from every seat. Whether you're in Vaught Hemingway Stadium, Comerica Park, or Tropicana Field, you can see exactly what it looks like. In their customer service suite, they have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. That's something that you're going to want to do. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, Create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, all one word, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That could come in handy in the Georgia game this year, by the way. So Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available in the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app. Be part of history. And there's still time to join the Grove Collective and help Ole Miss football be elite. You can go to thegrovecollective.com and join today. All right, Brian, here we go. Just some random rapid fire. This is stuff that we're not even preparing for. I'm not even preparing for this right now. So if I blindside you, I apologize.
No worries.
So in recruiting in July, you are through the camp season. You're through the offer season. What is going on in July?
There are two main things. Number one are commitments. Like, again, July 4th, there's kids committing all over the country. You know, it's national holiday, etc. And then the second part, at the very end of the month, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every school has some kind of barbecue, cookout, grill and chill, whatever they call it at each institution. At Auburn, it's Big Cat Weekend. Everybody's got a name.
Ole Miss is Juice Fest.
There it is. You have some kind of event where kids come kind of learn about the program a little bit, but it's more about culture and having fun because everybody's season starts, high school and college, the next week. So it's the last chance to do a little recruiting right after the dead period and in a more favorable way. It's not like hardline because it's unofficial visits and stuff, but everybody goes and it's a big event for all these different schools. SEC schools do a great job with it. Those are the two things going on the most. It's fun.
Yeah. So how has like the fact that the NCAA, how do you think it's going to affect things that analysts and all that can coach? They can actually on field do it. It's almost gotten to the point where you're just hiring the old on field jobs as recruiters, and you have these analysts that can be your on field guys.
Or you could do it the other way too. If there's a guy that's a great coach, but he just doesn't want to deal with the NIL and all that other stuff, he may be the position coach, but you got a younger guy that's more hip with Instagram and all that stuff. They do it. So it depends on circumstance, but like, I think they won't admit this, but I think one of the reasons the NCAA is allowing these extra coaches is because so many coaches hate the transfer portal. I do mean hate and the NIL stuff. I just want to coach. And if you don't do this, either I'm retiring or I'm going to try to go to the NFL to do something. I'm done with this. So they have to do less of it. The recruiting is the big part. And it's cool for some of the younger guys to get on the field and get to do some on-field coaching too, because that gives them a chance to move up. Because it's hard. If you don't get a play call and you don't get a coach, an elite guy, it's hard to get a job somewhere else and move up the ladder. But the NCAA just like out of the blue did that. And I'm like, there's got to be a reason for this. Because forever they fought it and they like didn't want a bunch of coaches because so much money went into football and the Title IX concerns. All of a sudden that changed, Stephen. It's very ironic.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like Ole Miss has potentially the greatest assistant linebacker coach in the history of college football in Zach Arnett.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, random stuff like that. You know, he could be doing something else. So good for Ole Miss. But that's the nature of the beast, man. You got to have guys like that around because you know that Texas, Ohio State schools like that. Can you imagine how many analysts like Alabama and all these schools are going to have if you can put more guys on the field? It's going to be insane.
Yeah, Ole Miss is already set up because Lane Kiffin got to Ole Miss and immediately started creating the Alabama model and started just adding analysts. And they're the Saban school for discarded coaches has moved over to Oxford, Mississippi, and there's benefits. They've got one of the better staffs in all of football. You don't even think about that. Lane takes up all the oxygen in the room, but you got this extremely talented roster, this great coaching staff, and everybody is focused on Lane and his Instagram.
That's because it sells. People want instant gratification. So Lane provides plenty of that. But as far as wins and losses, you need your entire staff, analysts included, to do well and provide something for you. Lane wouldn't be hiring him if he didn't think that was the case.
Okay. And the last thing before we get out of here, is there a worse drive in the United States than Tallahassee to Pensacola on I-10?
If there is, I haven't done it. That is bad. And I've unfortunately done it many times. I tell people there are two things. There are mosquitoes and alligators. That's all you got.
Yeah, it's all it is pine trees. Now, I'm from the Pine Belt in Mississippi. I went to high school. Pine trees, they're my jam. And I have like 3 pine trees on my property. They might be the only 3 pine trees in Winter Haven, Florida. But you drive from Tallahassee to Pensacola, it is nothing but pine trees. It's a wall of pine trees.
It's rough, brother. It's 2+ hours of you better have some good music or a good podcast. Otherwise, you're done.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But I appreciate it, Brian. What you got going on this week?
Well, this week is a little bit of off time for me. I just get to do podcasts and just work on the stuff coming up for later this month. It's great. I'm not actually traveling, which is rare.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, every single day. Brian, thank you very much. The Florida football scout. And we get to enjoy this weekend as well. I'm headed back to Florida as people are listening to this podcast.
There you go.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Take care.